Welcome to the Truman Charities podcast. I am Jamie Truman, your host. My first awareness of Parkinson's disease came years ago. I don't know if you guys remember when Michael J. Fox courageously came out with his diagnosis. But since then, I've been noticing that a lot of people close to me have been affected by Parkinson's as well. For example, one of my really good girlfriends, her father was diagnosed a few years back. And then I'm sure that you just recently heard NFL legend Brett Favre came out as well with his Parkinson's diagnosis. So now it seems like it's been highlighting the growing prevalence of this condition. And Parkinson's actually was once thought that it just primarily affected older white men. And now it's being recognized as affecting individuals of all ages, races, and genders. So what exactly is Parkinson's disease and what are its stages? And I didn't know this, but did you know that there are both internal and external tremors? And that some individuals even experience delusions and hallucinations. So do we know what causes Parkinson's and how do we even treat this disease? To dive deeper into these questions, I spoke with Dr. George Ackerman, founder of Together For Sharon. George's journey from a grieving son to a passionate advocate for individuals with Parkinson has led him to interview over 1,000 people worldwide, gaining invaluable insights from those affected from this disease. But before we begin this conversation, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast. As 100% volunteer-based organizations, your reviews help spread the word and enable us to reach more people. Leaving a review on your Apple app is the best way to support Truman Charities. Now, let's get into this fascinating conversation with Dr. George Ackerman. Hi, George. Thanks so much for coming on to talk with us today.
Thank you for your time and the audience. It means the world to me and so many out there today to have this opportunity.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Together For Sharon, and you created this organization in memory of your mom. But first, I want to know, for people that don't know about Parkinson's, let's talk a little bit about that. Exactly what is it?
So one of the fastest growing neurological disorders in the world, about 1 million or 1.2 million in the US and 10 million globally have it. It's a movement disorder. So unfortunately, there's 5 stages, we believe. We cannot tell the same stage for each person, which is why it's such a complicated, quick answer. This could take several hours, but from my experience, again, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD and a lawyer and a police officer, but obviously it's in different areas, not medical. But I went through the journey with my mother who had Parkinson's for 15 years. And again, excuse me, every journey is so different. What happened with my mother she had it for 15 years. We didn't really know much or talk about it till the 7th. She started having a lot of stiffness in her left arm, which made it tough to use, but she still lived independently. Unfortunately, the last 4 years when she went for special trial, because we ran out of ideas how to help her, that's when we saw the progression increase critically. And we'll get to it later if we have time. But really, some of the things, if you look at Mr. Michael J. Fox, the famous actor, he has external tremors, so it's uncontrollable movements. Some, like my mother, had internal. So it was even, in a way, a little bit not more frustrating, but also as frustrating because you might see what Mr. Fox is going through, but if you don't see it, you don't really know that the person even has something going on. Also, a lot of people are misdiagnosed, but again, just to get to the question, it's a movement disorder. You might see external or internal tremors, so involuntary movement. Also, it's called bradykinesia or stiffness. So if I want to raise my hand, sometimes it's, the brain doesn't allow it. And there's also so many other symptoms from constipation to what the drugs do to the individual. My mother lost extreme amount of weight. Also, individuals, some lose their ability to speak, to walk, and really after the disease progressed tremendously, you're not able to live independently anymore. And so it's kind of, you take somebody like my mother, who was a strong, independent woman, lived alone, had a great career, and 3 grandchildren, and went from, being able to live independently to having to take the car away to not being able to really even live alone anymore. And it's something that I can't even explain, so that's why I wrote about it. and it's it's debilitating. And they say you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it, but obviously there are complications. And my mother didn't have any other medical issues but Parkinson's, and we still to this day don't understand why it progressed so quickly. And she passed at the young age of 69.
Wow. So is Parkinson's, is that hereditary or are they not sure?
They don't
Or is it
believe
not?
so. And
Okay.
then I also have a show, and we just focus on Parkinson's. And so many of the people I've been guests have had in their families, but then there's others who haven't. That's really why there's no cure, because scientists and researchers are trying hard 24/7, and there's been, trillions of dollars donated, but we still don't have a cure because everybody is so different and it's affecting each person so differently.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Sharon, your mom,
Thanks.
and tell me a little bit about the beginning stages of Parkinson's for her.
Yeah, she didn't. I don't know if she didn't tell us because she didn't want to burden the family, or maybe she just wasn't aware. Because back then, 10 years, and it's been five, but when she struggled was 10, they didn't have as much research as they do today. Today, we know sports and exercise can slow the progression. But again, everything's so complicated, whether you take the right medicine at the right time, whether it's given to the person the right time, whether that doctor gave the right medicine, whether they, even stated it was Parkinson's. There's other illnesses called Parkinsonians, which are similar but not Parkinson's. So if you give the wrong medicine, it's going to cause other issues. So she had it again for several years. I didn't even know it was a disease. I just heard of Parkinson. I didn't even know it was Parkinson's. And then it wasn't that we didn't care, but it didn't affect her. She still lived. I mean, it did quietly and silently, but she still was able to drive, have friends, go out shopping, eat dinner. Something happened towards the seventh year and the last few years. I would say the last four, but she ended up going for a special unit to university for a trial. And when she came home, I got a call at 4 a.m. to rush over to her home. She was moving her furniture out of her home, and when I approached her, I asked what's wrong. She said she thinks there's Nazis in her home and they're going to harm her. So I had to rush her to the hospital, and they said we saved her life, but the last 2 years or something tough to again even describe. We we didn't know, but some do get hallucinations and delusions from the medicines that are caused by Parkinson's. So I almost felt like a little nail and a hammer was hitting me in the head, because every time we tried to learn about Parkinson's and some ways to cure it or just help support her, there was just another thing and then another thing, and it was just very, very difficult. And just so much to tell you in the viewers, since we don't have the time.
You mentioned that there's a lot of different types of Parkinson's. Did your mother have a hard time finding the correct combination of medication?
In a way, I don't think we ever did, because she'd still be here. Because there are people who, live till the late ages. Obviously, they might not be comfortable, but they still are living from 85 to 65. So that's, again, very complex. And we don't understand really why one individual may pass younger. I mean, I think 69 is still a baby these days. I think that's why I do what I do, is because feel like she lost 15 years of her life alive and then another 15 years after. And I don't think it was fair. And I also believe we should never allow any disease to ever take our loved one's memories. It might have taken our loved one, but it can never take the better time. So, big message today is really, if you have someone you're caring for, or even if you don't, give them a hug, and don't forget about the nonsense and the weird. Me and my mother used to argue like crazy on Sundays when the whole family would gather, and we wanted to order food, but nobody could agree on what food it was. So back then we would have like loud fights. But it's hilarious. And now today I laugh and think I wish I had that. So it's those are the things that kind of were funny then, but now I miss, and you have to really enjoy every moment. But it's hard because everyone's working and life goes by. But just that's why I really wasn't the best role model as an advocate today, or a caregiver, because they say you have to take care of yourself first. But I never knew that Parkinson's would take my mother, and I didn't know how long I had, and I didn't want. She only felt comfortable, it seemed, when I was there. So I kind of sacrificed a lot of my health, and even today, at nights I don't sleep thinking about people today battling Parkinson, because I felt alone. And my mother, I couldn't believe, I realized this the other week. In 15 years, she never met somebody who had Parkinson's disease. So we didn't even know there were other people like her out there. And that's really what the point of what I do today, and even coming on the show, whether you have Parkinson's or not, unfortunately, it's growing and there's more and more people now. It's becoming more public because people like athletes. Brett Favre just came out to say he has Parkinson's. Bernie Kosar has actually been a guest on my show, the legendary quarterback. Ryan Reynolds just discussed how his father had it and also fought with dementia. And a lot of people don't even know that or talk about it. Because delusions and hallucinations are a very tragic thing to go through. So it's becoming, kind of at the national attention. And in a way, I'm happy, but also sad because I don't want more people to be diagnosed. And we also have more females being diagnosed and young onset, which is younger people. So people from 20s, 30s, and 40s, like Michael J. Fox was diagnosed, I believe, in his 30s, which is very young. And as you can see, if you see him today, I had the honor to work with him and meet him, but he's not doing well. So it's hard because he's the advocate, like my hero, at the face of the movement. And it's just heartbreaking seeing a little bit of my mother in him each and every day.
You were talking a little bit about when people are diagnosed. So, are you saying that now they're seeing that more younger people are getting diagnosed with Parkinson's?
Yeah, the one thing I've found, and it's sad, is that Parkinson does not discriminate. Obviously, we don't want it to, but anyone can get it. Any race, gender, ethnicity, culture, background, and country. There's people. After 2 years after my mother passed, I fought and advocated in her memory. And then I realized when I discovered 10 million people around the world have Parkinson's, I was in kind of heartbroken and thought that this isn't just about me and my mother anymore. It has to be about everybody because we have to be a family in the fight for a cure. So I actually interviewed 1,000 people around the world, from Africa to Asia to England, France, Spain, Iceland, even, and was shocked to find out that Parkinson's exists there in Nova Scotia, all the way to Florida, and New York. So it's getting, unfortunately, more popular. More people are learning about it because even if they don't have it, their neighbor might have it, a relative or a very close friend, and seeing a loved one kind of really go from a healthy weight in life to almost no life at all, like lifeless, is shocking and tragic. But I feel if we had more awareness in the world, we would have already found a cure. And that's, again, I don't want people to ever feel alone because I didn't know what to do or who to speak to.
Mhm.
That's really why I started togetherforsharon.com. We're not a company on purpose. It's just me. Just one son, unfortunately, lost their best friend and mother due to the disease, but I fight in her honor. And even today, if we just reach one person, we might change their life. And now they learned about my mother, so she kind of lives on through everyone.
Yes, let's talk a little bit about why you decided to write the book. You have the book A Son's Journey, and tell me why you decided to write that and what you wanted the readers to get out of it.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't really want to write books on the subject. I've written in obviously my field, police and criminal justice and law. I'm an attorney and police officer, reserve now, and I'm a professor. But I wrote that book and because it was hard to talk about the last year of her life. It's something even now, probably, even though I'm 6'2", 200 pounds, police, I'll fall apart and it's not easy. So last year of her life, I kept a journal. I kept video and pictures. I never shared them with anyone. And then I realized there's nothing, I can't believe it. I always tell everyone, I challenge them to write me if I'm wrong. But even today, a year later, since the book's been out, there isn't one book in the whole world, and it's a big world, that from a son who lost their mother due to Parkinson's. And I was like, wow, there's something either not right or that's the problem with advocacy. It's not enough. So that's why I decided to put my mother's life story and her journey with Parkinson's and then mine as her caregiver and leading to today as advocate. I've actually already published a few other books and have several coming. The most recent book, which I'm excited, the original hasn't come yet, but it's actually called Policing and Parkinson's Disease, and the entire book is dedicated to. It's kind of a pro-police book, but not like a lot of things in the world with policing today. But it's really to show we need every field, but specifically mine, law enforcement, to just understand what Parkinson's disease is, because if there's any encounter with someone, even getting a ticket, and that officer doesn't know what Parkinson's is or even trained, they won't understand that it's an involuntary movement. So if someone's told to put your hands up, they can't do that. If someone's told to do certain commands and not knowing it's going to end very bad. Some officers believe someone could be drunk or, DUI while they're driving, but it's not. It's Parkinson's disease. So again, it's hard to sell these because I'm picking a specific population, and we don't want to sell them. We want the world to know about them and have them. My dream is right now, most academies throughout the United States, they have the word dementia and Alzheimer's, but Parkinson's disease does not exist. So my dream would be to have them just add through Congress or each, it's not easy by myself, but just add the word Parkinson's disease in the academy training and then sworn training for officers, because I think that it would save lives.
I didn't even think about that. That you're so right. Like officers do need to understand this disease as well. And I did. I took your book and I looked through, and you had some wonderful reviews on Amazon for your book that I think people should look at. And I sent it to one of my friends. Her dad has had Parkinson's for a while, and I said, I think this book would be really great for you because you're going to feel connected to somebody else that has been through the same process as you. So I think that book is really helpful. I want to talk a little bit about, you have these wristbands that you have on your site for people. Let's talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, when my mother passed, we didn't know what to do. It was kind of in shock, and we just, out of nowhere had a funeral. And I'm the kind of person that likes to remember people, and my mother, of course, because I was still again in shock. So we just decided, my wife and I, why not, put together these little bands. They just say togetherforsharon.com, and also it says in memory of my mother Sharon, and that's really what was important to me. Just those few people in the room to remember. Well, I don't know what happened, but now he's my brother-in-law, but back then he was dating my sister-in-law, and he just decided for some reason he sent me a picture with the band on, but his face wasn't in it. So I thought it was an interesting thing, like how come so just his arm in the band, which I thought was cool. And as a lawyer and police officer, I know people like their privacy. Well, I decided, why not take the band, wear it everywhere I go, just to tell people, that never forget about my mother's journey. And then we started doing it at Disney and all, but all of a sudden it went viral, and celebrities were actually wearing it. And even Willie Geist, his wife, he was a famous broadcaster on NBC, Willie Geist, and
Mhm.
Today Show, I think. But anyway, his wife somehow found it, and she ran with it and talked about it. So it was beautiful. And all the books too now are available on togetherforsharon.com, which is nice.
And I also like about your website is that you have strategically decided what organizations you would like to partner up with for people that would like to help and make a donation towards different organizations that are helping with people that have Parkinson's or research for Parkinson's. So tell me a little bit about how you chose who to partner with.
Yeah, we advise everyone to go find who they want. Someday we might end up turning Together for Sharon into a nonprofit. I'm on the walk committee in South Florida for a few of those organizations. So once a year, like I'm driving to Orlando in March for the Michael J. Fox Foundation. They have a community event called IQ and You, and it's just an informational thing. I'll have a table, everyone could come out. I love virtual, but being there with people with Parkinson's and caregivers is just life changing. We'll laugh together, cry together, and realize there is hope, and it's just a beautiful moment. So they're not really. And the nice thing is they all created beautiful links. So if you donate to the organizations from our website, if you click donation, it'll go to those organizations, but in memory of my mother. So it's nice that they have that technology, but we still donate a bit, 3,000-4,000 a year just in her memory. It's not easy to keep all this up. That's been the biggest problem with advocacy, and ironically, I'm writing a book on that. But there's a lot of dark side to the world of advocacy, and one is it's hard because I lost my mother, so I don't have Parkinson's currently. I'm no longer a caregiver of someone alive with Parkinson's, but there's a third category, people like me who, are still here. We don't want our loved one to be forgotten, and that's been an interesting and not always easy concept, because obviously we want to fight for the people battling Parkinson today, but we also want to bring all the people like me who I think still have a voice and still matter into the conversation. But a lot of the big organizations and a lot of people I see in the world don't really have a place at the table for me. and people who lost a loved one. A lot of time people move on, which is reasonable. But I don't think we all, if we had all these people, like millions, like 20 million people who lost someone back into the or in organizations or even a whole division for people in memory, I think we would have been closer to a cure, but it's just not for some reason a priority. And I find that fascinating. That's the stuff that makes me want to put more books out. And even if I never saw one, even the police book, it's not easy because it's just me. But I just hope one day there's not something sad in society that occurs with police and someone with Parkinson's, and then you see it on the news, and then all of a sudden this guy George wrote a book, and now it'll be worldwide famous. That's not what I want. I just wanted to warn people beforehand. So, there's still a few things out there that I'm interested in. Eventually, I probably will be forced to stop writing just because of the expenses, but it's definitely something I hope people find out there.
When you decided to start your show, because I saw that. So if you go on Together for Sharon, you do have a link there where you can listen to some of your episodes.
Yeah, it's becoming a full-time job, which, as you know, it's not supposed to be. But I always thought I'd do one show a month. It's become 80, and the only reason is a lot of people like it really inspire me, and there's really not much like this. Again, I picked a very specific area. It only affects, and that's I say only because it's not. 2 million people plus 10 million is not a lot when you consider how many people in the world. But if it affects you, a close one or a friend, then now your world has changed. It's not easy. So my show might not reach a lot, but it's out there. I've had the honor to have some celebrities lately. We've had James Brown's daughter. We've had NFL football players. We had a retired professional hockey player. Just the other day, George McFly came on the show, which was the Back to the Future, the father. So the gentleman, Jeffrey Weissman, who played George McFly, Michael J. Fox's father in Back to the Future 2 and 3. So it's a lot of fun, but the real core of it is it's for people with Parkinson's or all caregivers for anything, and we're having 30 of the world-renowned scientists and researchers working on a cure. Just yet, and I'm scared because sometimes I don't, these people, 12 bio degrees in medical, and I'm like, what? But I was able to work with them fine. Last Friday, we had our first researcher, and there are two professionals and professors, I think University of Charlotte, UNC, but they have specific technology they're working on to slow the progression of Parkinson's, and those are the shows that I think the world would love to see because it's just fascinating.
Yeah, I do find the science behind things like very fascinating. So I think those shows would be really great to and are there a podcast too, right?
Yeah, I love YouTube for some reason because you see that you can. We're putting them on other things. I'm now trying to get the Spotify and the Apple going, but just me. So I seem to like
So
YouTube.
YouTube is the place to go, which is nice then too, because they can watch it.
Yeah.
So I do love that. So tell me something that you would want everyone to know about your mom, Sharon.
She was a loving, funny, and caring person, but someone who was there for me 24/7 through the good, bad, and the positive and the ugly. And if you met her, she would say, "Don't do all this," because she said, "Spend my time with my family." But she knows that she didn't raise me, and I don't think I'd be the man I am today or have the success I've had if it wasn't for her. She was a school teacher, had a master's degree, and literally gave it all up to raise me and my brother. And she sacrificed her life. So I try to do the same to remember her. I mean, I'd rather have her back and not do any of this, but it's not in the cards. But now every time I see somebody else battling it, I become, the best thing about advocacy is although it was a dark side to it, there's a lot of positive, and the people like you I've met today in your audience, and so many on my phone now that are literally like my brother and sister, but they're still battling Parkinson's, and they have tough days, and it's not always easy, and it's still till I see people still feeling alone, and yeah, I have to keep going. And I always say the only journey that breaks my heart today, the one that I'm not aware of, because there's people right now as we're speaking doing incredible things. The other few months ago, a group of four gentlemen rode around the world for Parkinson's and raised like $50 million. And they came on my show, and that was like the cool. Like these guys are celebrities to me. And it's just in the Parkinson's world, but to me, it changed my world. We have a show with them, and just talking to them, how they, stayed on a little team. I can't even go on a regular boat for that. I get seasick. But these people, like, rowing, or one of them had Parkinson, the others are just supporting him. But to be able to break records for a cure and to fund research is really just incredible. And I don't think my life would be the same if I didn't keep this up, because I'm still grieving, even though 5 years now. I miss my mother, and she lives again through this advocacy. But I don't want anyone to feel alone.
What would your advice be to someone who just found out that their mother or father has been diagnosed with Parkinson's,
Yeah, I
or a
mean,
loved one?
I would definitely say it's not easy, but there's people like me out there fighting for you. Reach out. Don't stay. We didn't, it's not like we just ignored the world, but we didn't even know where to look. If you type in Parkinson, you'll have 4 million things. Check out Together For Sharon. It's completely free. We don't want money. We just want people to know they're not alone. And there's so many resources. I think it's kind of getting too much on there. We've started like several different shows. Like, probably it's not just one show. Now we have a show. It's called the Together For Sharon podcast, which is my wife and I, and she was a caregiver. So it's nice to have the female perspective. Then it's Q&A with Sharon's son George, which is the one that I have like 180 films already. And that's the one where I interview one-on-one people around the world. I actually have just recently, last year, actually, the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease was passed, and that's the first U.S. bill in history. I don't know how, it's only a year ago, but that's been signed into law to help support people with Parkinson's and their caregivers. I actually applied to be, or I've been nominated to be on the national committee, which I won't know yet till February 15th it closes, but that would be like a dream to be able to be in Washington on the only committee in the world to help, support this bill. But exciting news I never told anyone. I hate saying it because I jinx it, but in a week or two, the literal congressman whose name was on the bill due to his brother's passing is coming on my show. So that's going to be like a real honor. We've had senators, United States Senator Rick Scott and other congressmen who sponsored the bill, but to have the individual who it's honored and named after is really what, again, I'm really excited for that.
Wow, your show is amazing. You've had some really incredible people on. And I did see, and I listened to a few of them, and I was kind of taken back by some of the stories. So I really encourage everyone to go to Together For Sharon, take a look at the website, look at, your show and listen, so you can learn so much. So, how do you see the future of Together For Sharon?
Well, it's like everybody else says, we hope there isn't one, because we hope there's a cure, and then that's it. But till then, I mean, it's gotta take a little break sometimes, because it's tiring. I mean, I have a show scheduled to 2026 every single day, which isn't really like
Every day?
every day, because there's a lot of people I really dreamt of having on, and we're going to have the Department of Defense on, because I want to talk about veterans with Parkinson's. We are having
Oh,
a lot of individuals that you don't. I had a Broadway singer the other day who has a organization called Sing Out Loud, because people with Parkinson's unfortunately lose their voice, and through speech therapy it helps them. Also helps smile. Music therapy is huge. They have animal therapy. So we had a gentleman runs an animal therapy company, and just so fascinating to me. And I never get tired of it while I'm sitting there. And some days, I work 24/7 too. So that's kind of my little break. So I always joke and say, Parkinson doesn't take a break. Why should I? I mean, these days everything's Zoom. There are people now can just join a class or a support group, or, sing on a special group from home on virtual, which is really a different world, because now we're bringing people around the world together for good.
I know, that's so great. So now you can interview people from different countries, like you said. So it is really incredible.
We
So
interviewed someone from Africa, and it was beautiful, but it was kind of odd because the Zoom isn't the best. But so his head froze and thing. But it was it's amazing to be able to connect with people. Unfortunately, in Africa, they believe Parkinson's is witchcraft. So we need to get out the awareness that that's not true. But that's a big problem with advocacy, and there's just misconceptions. The old days, it was the white man, elderly disease, but that's not true. It's young people. It's every race. It's also, women issues are huge now because there's not enough for it. I portrayed like 70 or 80 females now with Parkinson's. We've talked about things I never dreamt I would, from, being having a baby while you have Parkinson's, to different women issues that I wouldn't know about, but that are very important to talk, because there's women out there now being diagnosed, and it's shocking, and then they feel alone and they don't even know where to turn to. So now they can go for free to the website, hit podcasts. It might take a while because it's a lot of them now, but just you'll be able to see, females who have Parkinson's. We had one, I try to have fun with it because it's a tough topic, but I had tough shows where we're all almost crying. I mean, one show, beautiful woman who I'm friends with named Barbara, decided to tell everyone, on the show that she's wheelchair bound, and that was something that isn't always easy to talk about. So the show brings happiness, laughter, but also covers tough topics. So we had an doctor who deals with medical marijuana. I try to tackle every topic. I have nothing to hide, and I think if we don't touch on these tough topics, then we'll never find any resolutions.
Well, George, before I let you go, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think someone should know?
No, I mean, the main thing is that, I want everyone to know they're not alone. I have a little statement I say or message for everyone. I feel that, we send our love and support, and we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with your amazing host today, together will advocate because I feel our voices are so much stronger together. And I always say I'm just getting started because even though I've been doing it for 5 years, as I said earlier, there's just so many more people and journeys I want to discover. And we have a lot of work to do until the cure is here. And until then, I won't stop. And, the big thing now is really just getting the new book. And I hate saying it, but it's very important to me. And it's also a research book. It's not just a regular, like my son's journey is more of memoir. This is a research book. It's over 200 references. I put my PhD cap on and actually did a study with 12, I think, people who have Parkinson's and like 20 police, and actually interviewed them about their experiences and interactions with people with Parkinson's. And there's a lot of shocking things. One was that people with Parkinson's, many fear the police, and we can't have that because they shouldn't. But that's because of lack of education. And then I contacted one academy in every single state in the U.S. and researched if they offer any training at all for sworn officers with Parkinson's, and the statistics and data is shocking. And I just think this is a book that should be on the news and things, not because I wrote it, just because it's so important. But honestly, getting it out there in the world is very, very, very difficult. And the only way, too, is through everyone's help and support.
Well, these podcasts are very helpful for spreading the word. We're going to make sure that we have Together for Sharon in the show notes along with your book titles as well. So it makes it very easy for everybody to pick up a copy and to get connected with you guys. So I want to thank you so much for coming on again. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Truman Charities Podcast. Wasn't that an interesting conversation with George? I personally didn't know that much about Parkinson's and really how prevalent it is now. And then also, I didn't even think about the fact that something that police officers should really be aware of. So I think that George came with so much information, and I feel like I know a lot more about Parkinson's and then how we can help support people that have been affected by it. Now, if you liked our podcast, please make sure, again, to rate and review our podcast. We are a 100% volunteer-based organization, so this is the best way to support us. Go into your Apple app, scroll down, hit that 5 stars, and just write a review about your favorite podcast episode that you like so far. And then also, while you're at it, click the subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. If you'd like to follow me and Truman Charities, you can follow Truman Charities on Facebook at Truman Charities, Instagram, Jamie_Truman Charities. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Jamie Truman. And then to make sure that you don't miss any of our upcoming events and Bethesda's Best Happy Hours, go into trumancharities.com and then sign up for our newsletter. Of course, do not forget that I wrote a book, Vanishing Fathers, The Ripple Effect on Tomorrow's Generation. 100% of the proceeds from that book go directly to charities that help at-risk youths. You can pick that up on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, any online bookstore. So thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Truman Charities Podcast. Until next time.